So just in terms of what that guidance contains, and this is all available at the moment through the OGC website, and initially 11 guides were published, looking at firstly that whole delivery of everything up to procurement, then a number of guides looking at the procurement process and life cycle, and then actually how you work with construction teams and set construction teams up to get the best possible performance in areas like whole life, design quality, health and safety and sustainability. So in terms of what did we do within Constructing Excellence when we were set the challenge of updating this guidance? Well, firstly, obviously, initial discussions with the Office of Government Commerce to understand their expectations for this piece of work. We then did an initial review of the existing guidance with key stakeholders from across the sector, and again, the sorts of people you'd anticipate, so local government, central government clients, central government agencies, and the supply side. We then looked at setting out a new structure for the guidance, because we identified that within the initial suite of guidance when it was first published, there were some areas where there were crossovers and repetition, and we tried to do as much as we could to avoid that. And then we set about rewriting the guidance, identified some new case studies to go within the amended content, and then a final consultation on the redrafted guidance within a far wider stakeholder group. And we came to some initial conclusions. And the first conclusion echoed what we'd found within the Wolstenholme report and within some of the work that we do within Constructing Excellence on leading edge projects like the demonstration programme. And that was that the industry had moved on substantially since that guidance was initially drafted. And actually where we noticed the greatest changes were in the areas of sustainability and in the areas of health and safety. We also identified that essentially the public sector procurement had moved on substantially, and public sector procurement was far better than it had been 10 years ago, but there was still some way to go. We also identified that there was existing guidance out there in the sector, and that what we didn't want to do within the Achieving Excellence guides when we rewrote them was turn them into War and Peace. We wanted to point to other existing guidance that exists within the sector where that was available and align with other industry targets and best practice. But finally, we didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. People had found the Achieving Excellence guides very useful and found that the subdivisions of headings within those guides were understandable, so we didn't want to get rid of those. Now, it talks about some of the other best practice that we look to align to. Now, firstly, I want to mention the construction commitments and the strategic forum targets. Now, these were initially born out of a piece of work that Constructing Excellence kicked off for the strategic forum and the ODA when London was awarded the Olympics. So we drafted the 2012 construction commitments, which are a series of best practice statements across 6 different headings. And those are the 6 headings you can see on the screen. And when we initially drafted those, it was with the view to the ODA procuring their work for the Olympics in line with those best practice statements, and over time the public sector as a whole, and then hopefully the private sector as well, identifying the best practice within those statements and working in line with them. Because they were quite Olympic-based commitments, those were then redrafted as generic construction commitments, and those were published in 2008. And at the moment, the Strategic Forum is annually publishing an update on their performance in line with how the industry is embedding those commitments and meeting a set of complementary targets. Off the back of that, the Construction Clients Group, which is part of Constructing Excellence, took those generic commitments and turned them into a series of clients' commitments. So essentially looking at those 6 headings that we just saw on the screen a moment ago, and identifying things that specifically clients, both public and private sector clients, could do in order to embed those commitments in how they go about procuring and delivering on their construction programmes. And those commitments are available through the Constructing Excellence website, constructingexcellence.org.uk, and just clicking through to the Construction Clients Group link. So going back to the guidance, and as I said, we tried to align what we did in terms of the rewritten Achieving Excellence guidance with those construction and clients commitments. So what you will see when the OGC finally publishes that guidance in the coming weeks is that for each of the individual guides, it will point you towards the individual construction and clients commitments that they align to. We drafted some new case studies, as I mentioned we would do, and then we worked on some areas that had come to the fore in significantly more depth. So looking at examples of collaborative procurement, where clients are working together to procure their construction programs, looking at much more detail about resource efficiency, especially around the sustainability agenda, so looking at waste, water and energy use, vehicle movements, for example. There were new client responsibilities under CDM 2007, which we had to take into account as part of the drafting on health and safety. Building information modelling had started to come to the fore, and a number of stakeholders said that we'd be remiss not to mention that within the guidance. For those of you that are not aware, building information modelling is a technique where you take a single design model and use that from throughout the design, procurement, construction, and then finally the facilities management of a project and the product. And that model has embedded in it information on how to build that building, and also information on the materials used and the maintenance life cycles. And then also going back to resource efficiency, but in terms of process, looking at lean techniques. So there's much more brought out on lean techniques within the new guidance. And what we've looked at is that the guidance should be designed to add value both frequent informed clients, those people that have substantial construction spends, but also using the knowledge drawn down from those frequent clients to benefit occasional clients. And also the OGC were very, very keen that the guidance be usable by supply-side organisations, so that supply-side organisations picking up the Achieving Excellence guidance could get a very quick idea, a very swift idea, and a very deep understanding of what central government clients would be looking for when procuring construction work. And just visually, what we do within Constructing Excellence when working with clients, we do try to work with those intelligent clients to draw down the lessons from their construction programs to help identify things that other sorts of clients that don't have substantial construction spends maybe do one project in a generation, to take some of those lessons to improve with their own projects. So just some key lessons from that guidance review. Working with those stakeholders, one of the absolute key messages that came out again and again and again was that traditional lowest cost procurement does not provide best value. And again, I think you've heard quite a lot about that today, and you've seen that from the slide I put up between the demonstration performance against the rest of the industry, and you've heard it from what Martin has said earlier in the first presentation after lunch. Again, reiterating one of Martin's points, more work needs to be done to promote fair payment practices down the supply chain. There was a recognition, certainly within government clients, that there is swift payment from client down to tier one contractor that isn't necessarily being passed on. Also a recognition that while some government clients are excellent procurers of construction, others still resort to lowest cost tendering, others still could be doing better and doing more. And then finally, and this has led on to a secondary piece of work, that there should be a method for assessing government client performance. Now, why is this crucial? Why is this crucial now? Because this is where we are. And again, I'm sure Don will have put this slide up earlier. What we want to see is that there is no U-turn back to lowest cost tendering, that there is a real move to delivering best value. So mentioning this assessment matrix, we've worked with the OGC and with the NAO to develop a maturity assessment looking at the behaviours for delivering across those 6 key headings of the construction commitments. And it's an assessment that will be rolled out across central government from the new financial year. Now, I don't know whether OGC will be looking at carrying out the maturity assessments for other government clients in due course. It's something they're thinking about, but just to be aware of it, it's certainly something OGC are looking at, understanding as government client organisations what certainly central government and maybe in the future local government will be doing in terms of how well it is procuring construction. Just finally, this is one of the case studies we put in the new Achieving Excellence guidance. It was a school designed and constructed with student attainment at the very heart of what it was aiming to do, and it embedded essentially all of the lessons from the Egan report, and it helped that academy come out at the top of the attainment league tables. So thank you very much for listening, and be delighted to take any questions.